I want to bring in Democratic Senator Chris Coons of Delaware, a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee. Good to see you, Senator.
Good to see you.
You're someone who has the president's ear on foreign policy. So we just heard him say his record on human rights is clear. What do you say to a voter who argues that meeting with and maybe even making a deal with Jamal Khashoggi's killer isn't what they thought when he meant when on the campaign trail he said he'd make Saudi Arabia a pariah?
Look, I'm the co-chair, the co-founder of the Senate Human Rights Caucus. I have followed in what was former Senator Biden's long record in the Senate of advocating for human rights as a core interest in American foreign policy and in how we conduct ourselves here at home. But one of the things that has changed since the campaign, has changed in recent months, is that Russia is committing daily human rights violations, atrocities in Ukraine against thousands of innocent Ukrainian civilians. And one other thing that's changed is that the strain, the pressure on our key European allies and partners because of oil and gas prices continues to rise. I respect that the president made a hard decision, that he needs to go to the Gulf to meet with, I think, 9 different heads of state at this GCC meeting, the Gulf Coordinating Council meeting in Saudi Arabia, and sit down and have a conversation about security, about Iran, about Israel, about the region, and yes, about human rights. Jamal Khashoggi's widow had a meeting at the White House with a senior official who reassured her that President Biden would raise the issue of her late husband's brutal murder at the hands of agents of the Saudi kingdom. And I am confident that President Biden knows fully his responsibilities as the American president to both work to ensure our security and our values. There are so many urgent issues in the Middle East that need to be addressed. I'm glad he's there, and I'm glad that a president with decades of experience in both advancing human rights and our foreign policy interests is at the table today.
So to your point, Senator, and the president's point on gas prices, realistically, what could this trip really do to ease not just prices at the pump, but potentially, because of its role in inflation overall, inflation?
Well, the prices at the pump in my home state of Delaware has come down week after week now. It's come down almost 50 cents from its high.
But still, I think I still think about $1.50 more than it was this time last year, just to put it in perspective. But continue, Senator.
Thank you. I do think that there are only 3 countries that I'm aware of that have significant untapped reserves that could go onto the global market: Iran, Venezuela, and Saudi Arabia. Of those 3, I think having a meeting with the Saudis, the Qataris, the Emiratis, 3 of the key oil and gas producers in the Middle East, makes far more sense than otherwise making some accommodation with the dangerous and aggressive regime in Iran or with the Maduro regime in Venezuela, which continues to oppress its people and to violate fundamental norms of both democracy and human rights. So I do think that this can make a significant difference for European energy security, which is critical to the path forward in Ukraine, and because it's an integrated global market for oil and gas, can also help with global prices and inflation.
I don't need to tell you, but all these programs, and many you haven't mentioned, depend on holding control of the Senate, the House in November. And let me talk about the impact of inflation, because it was a new 40-year high last month, up to 9.1% from last year, up 9.1% from last year. A pound of chicken up 36 cents, a pound of ground beef up 53, milk 59, eggs up $1.07. How do you counter that on the campaign trail? How do Democrats make the sell that they deserve to stay in power in November?
Well, Chris, one of the key complaints I've heard for years from Delawareans about prices is the price of prescription drugs. Prescription drugs aren't optional. You have to take them. And family after family, from seniors to parents of infants in Delaware, have said to me, we have to do something on prescription prices. Democrats have a plan. We are poised to pass it. Minority Leader McConnell, Republican Leader Mitch McConnell, is saying if you pass that reconciliation plan to reduce prescription drug prices, I will prevent us from taking up and passing the other key plan that will help reduce prices, the so-called COMPETES Act. It was passed out of the Senate a year ago by a big bipartisan margin. It would reduce the price of semiconductor chips by increasing their supply. Why don't we have enough affordable, for example, used cars currently available to buy? Because there aren't enough semiconductor chips. So there's two things that Democrats are trying to move forward that would reduce the price of things that really matter to people, prescription drugs and vehicles. And we don't have full cooperation from our colleagues here in the Senate in the Republican minority. There are some working well with us on this Competes Act and others trying to find a way to block us. I think we have a plan and a path forward. The president has a plan and a path forward. We need Republicans to join us if we're going to reduce prices at the grocery store, at the pharmacy counter, and at the pump.
Senator Chris Coons, appreciate your time, sir. Thank you so much.